This is week 2 of the fall trimester of my Atelier diary. For the figure portion, the last video, it was all about the drawing and building up the drawing that week. And this week, I started the painting process. On Monday, I took a small scrap of canvas. I think it was, I don't know, around that big. I forgot to take a picture of it, but I'll include it in my next video. So for that little color study, it's just kind of mapping out what's exactly what it sounds like. It's a study of the colors. So it's just mapping out and figuring out what I'm going to be doing for the bigger painting. And then on Tuesday, I transferred the drawing onto the canvas. And so how I do the transfer drawings is I have my drawing that I'd worked on that last week. I take tracing paper, tape it to the drawing, take a Sharpie, trace out the big lines that make up the gesture. Take the tracing paper off, flip it to the reverse side. I take paint, trace on the back of the tracing paper over the Sharpie lines. Then I take the tracing paper, put it onto my canvas so the Sharpie lines are up and then the painted lines are sandwiched in between the tracing paper and the canvas. And then I take a ballpoint pen and I trace all those Sharpie lines so that's getting the impression of the paint onto the canvas. So when I take the tracing paper off, there should be the line marks of the drawing. And so that's how I get the drawing transferred onto the canvas, but then I mix up two colors. So the two colors that I start off with is the shadow color that's on the figure and then the background color. Now the background's really dark compared to the last paintings that I've been doing. You can still see some things in the background like what she's sitting on, and there's still more space, so it's not going to be jet black, but in the first weeks or so, I really want to simplify the background as much as possible. So especially for this first day, it's all one tone in the background. So that first day of painting it on Tuesday, it's just getting the relationship between the dark background to the slightly lighter shadow that's on the figure, and then just correcting the drawing from there. On Wednesday, I'm trying to get closer to the impression of nature. This time, it's more than just the shadow and background color. I was also mixing up colors for the lights that are on the figure. This day, though, probably felt the most shaky because I felt like I couldn't get the colors right. Like they were looking kind of orange and not bright enough. I felt like I probably spent most of the day trying to keep correcting the mixtures. I don't know, the colors, I was just getting confused with the colors because how I was mixing them on my palette, they weren't looking the same when I put them on my canvas. Now this is only my second color figure painting. The first one that I did last year before summer break, I remember starting it off, the first week or two felt really shaky and kind of like I didn't know what I was doing, and I really had to build up the layers before the colors started looking how I wanted them to look. I probably just have to keep playing around with color more before I can feel confident in these first few stages, so I'm just trying to push it along. Come Thursday, the colors are starting to look more like the impression of what I'm seeing in nature. And this photo is kind of blurry, so I'm gonna watch out for that next time when I take the photos. And so Thursday, I was feeling more comfortable with how I'm blocking in the colors. So starting off this painting, I'm really trying to have everything be really simple and just get the really big impression of nature. When I look at Madeline, I can divide her into 3 really big planes of color. So the top part of her shoulders and chest that's above her breast, it's kind of like a purpley color. Her breasts then are the brightest thing in the painting, and it's a really light pinky color. And then her stomach and legs are a nice ochre color. So those are the 3 big planes. And then kind of separate from that, her hands, feet, knees, and face are just the most red things in the paintings, and that's pretty true for each figure. And so since I felt like I was getting closer to the colors of the figure, I really wanted to then spend Friday correcting the drawing. So on Friday, I was really focused on the drawing and then also transitions. Because before this, the shadow into the light were really hard, quick transitions. So everything was kind of looking unnatural, and I didn't know if the drawing was off or it was just the transitions, because I feel like even when you do have the drawing pretty nailed down, if your transitions are too jumpy and too sharp, it just makes things look unnatural, so you don't know if the drawing's correct or not. So I spent all of Friday just working on transitions. And so fixing the transitions and really working on the softness in certain areas really helped me to figure out proportions. I think I finally have her head. I remember last week I was talking about the head was way too big and the foot was way too small. I think I have the head and the facial proportions down pretty well, and then also the foot. And I really like how I captured the foot as well, the one that's in light at least. I like the gesture that I got on it, so I'm glad that I really worked out the proportions and drawing on Friday. And here's a close-up of the painting on the final day. You can see that the paint is really thin in some areas, and you can still see the canvas peeking through. When you get really close up, you can see how the paint is handled, and in my opinion, it's pretty far from beautiful when you're up really close to it. The paint is kind of scrubbed or dabbed or placed on in a way where it's just kind of mapping out areas that I'm trying to see the big impression for. So I think the painting looks much better when you stand farther away from it, so you don't see all these abrupt, dabbed, weird changes, how the paint is handled. I think it's fine to do it right now in these beginning steps, because I definitely don't want to be in the mindset of resolving anything yet while I'm still figuring things out. But then closer to the end of the 5 weeks, the goal is I want the painting to really hold up for someone that's looking really close up at it. Now for the cast, I'm really happy that Matt and Mogs are really making me keep working on this cast, because I think I've improved it so much. What I've done is I've started at the top, which is the focal point, and I'm just kind of slowly working my way down, and I'm taking it in sections and really focusing on the section that I'm working on to really get as much space in it as I see in nature. For example, the thing that I started off with, which is the biggest focal point, the brightest part, is the whole top chest area. I really wanted to show the movement of the space. So for example, the breast is coming forward, and then the sternum, as it's changing into the neck, which is kind of cut off, how that's really moving back in space and twisting back away from the viewer. And then I also spent a lot of time in the stomach area, the middle region, really trying to get solid planes in there. That part I had been really unhappy with for a long time, because I was trying to get the planes to look solid, but there's also all of these wrinkles in it. So it's kind of a confusing area for me to work on, because there's just a lot going on, but you still want to make it look solid. I think I'm definitely moving in that direction. I think it's a whole lot better than where it was. I think you can definitely see where the plane moves away, flat plane where it's moving away again. However, I do think I could go back and make this better, so I do want to keep working on this area as well. And the big thing I know this coming week that I want to work on that I didn't get to yet, and I think it's the weakest part of the painting right now, is the fabric that's on the right side. So the fabric that's coming out of the bell, and it has all those folds as it's going down into the base. I think the drawing doesn't kind of makes sense. It just could be a whole lot better, and I could definitely get more space in there as well. So I really want to work on that coming this week. I'm just really happy that I'm still working on this painting, because I think the improvement has gone way up. Magda came by for her critique, and she said since I've improved it so much that I could be passed on it. But now, before it was like a struggle, and I had to get myself in the mindset like I'm going to keep working on this painting when I thought it was done before. But now I'm just really into it. I told her I want to keep working on it. I think I can still do quite a bit of improving through the whole piece. So I think I'm probably going to be working on it for 1 or 2 more weeks. The figure session and the cast session, those are the big parts of my day for school. But then we also have extra stuff that we do depending on which weekday it is. And I don't know if going over all these things is going to start making these videos too long. I'm going to try it now and for a little bit and see how it goes. So for Tuesday evening, here's my little evening figure drawing. And these are just 2 hours that we work on with a new pose, a new model. This one I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I feel like I captured the gesture really well, and the drawing of it just happened really fast, so I could work on the shadow shapes and light shapes and get some tone in there. And also, I feel like when I do these evening figure drawings, sometimes I feel like I really struggle with getting the drawing to look like it's finished and resolved. I think this time it does look pretty resolved and finished, so I really like how this drawing turned out. And at Ravenswood, we just started having anatomy lectures once a week, which is on Wednesday, and I'm super, super excited for this. The first one that we had, it was more of an introductory lecture. One really interesting thing that we did the first anatomy lecture, though, is Brett's the anatomy teacher, he had us take a sheet of paper and draw a figure out of our head in whatever pose we wanted. This is the one I did. And at least at my school, memory drawing or having the knowledge of the figure so you can do stuff out of your head isn't really stressed. Everything's done from life, sight size, that type of thing, which I think is really good, and I'm glad I'm working on that strength of working from life. But Brett's gonna stress teaching us from the memory of it, and so at the end of the year, he said he's going to have us do another drawing of the figure from our head, and so we can compare that with our first one, which I think will be really cool to see side by side.